All right. Good evening, good people. Good evening. It is time for another word. It's time for another Bible study. As you know, we are studying the book of Genesis. One chapter at a time, 1 week at a time. We are digesting the word. And today's message is coming from Genesis 26. And this is about Isaac. Isaac is the son of Abraham. And so it's so great to be able to follow the story of who we would consider the patriarchs. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and how their faith develops. That is the biggest takeaway from their story is like how their faith develops and how God uses them in a mighty way. And I want you to see in today's chapter, in chapter 26, how that faith develops for Isaac, who's the son of Abraham. We know oftentimes that when we have like a parent or somebody or a grandmother, if you will, who was big on faith, sometimes that doesn't get passed down to the children. And that is not the biblical example that we learn from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. It is a biblical example for other like families, sets of families, but in this particular example, it's a great example as to how they developed their own relationship with God. And so we are going to look at Isaac's obedience and how all of this unfolded for him. So I am going to share my screen. We are going to, of course, um, like digest it one chapter at a time. So I'm going to read the passage from Genesis 26, and then we are going to use the PowerPoint version to talk about that. So let's jump over to Genesis 26, and I'm reading from the NLT version per usual. It says, "A severe famine now struck the land as had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, where Abimelech, king of the Philistines, lived. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, 'Do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham your father. I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars of the sky, and I will give them all these lands. And through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. I will do this because Abraham listened to me and obeyed all my requirements, commands, decrees, and instruction.' So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife, Rebekah, he said, 'She is my sister.' He was afraid to say, 'She is my wife.' He thought, 'They will kill me to get her because she is so beautiful.' But sometime later, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out his window and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. Immediately, Abimelech called for Isaac and exclaimed, 'She is obviously your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?' 'Because I was afraid someone would kill me to get her from me,' Isaac replied. 'How could you do this to us?' Abimelech exclaimed. 'One of my people might easily have taken your wife and slept with her, and you would have made us guilty of great sin.' Then Abimelech issued a public proclamation: 'Anyone who touches this man or his wife will be put to death.' Conflict over water rights. When Isaac planted his crops that year, he harvested 100 times more grain than he planted, for the Lord blessed him. He became a very rich man, and his wealth continued to grow. He acquired so many flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and servants that the Philistines became jealous of him. So the Philistines filled up all of Isaac's wells with dirt. These were the wells that had been dug by the servants of his father Abraham. Finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. 'Go somewhere else,' he said, 'for you have become too powerful for us.' So Isaac moved away to the Gerar Valley, where he set up their tents and settled down. He reopened the wells his father had dug, which the Philistines had filled in after Abraham's death. Isaac also restored the names Abraham had given them. Isaac's servants also dug in the Gerar Valley and discovered a well of fresh water. But then the shepherds from Gerar came and claimed the spring. 'This is our water,' they said, and they argued over it with Isaac's herdsmen. So Isaac named the well Esek, which means argument. Isaac's men then dug another well, but again there was a dispute over it. So Isaac named it Sintna, which means hostility. Abandoning that one, Isaac moved on and dug another well. This time, there was no dispute over it, so Isaac named the place Rehoboth, which means open space. For he said, "At last, the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land." From there, Isaac moved to Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him on the night of his arrival. "I am the God of your father Abraham," he said. "Do not be afraid, for I am with you, and I will bless you. I will multiply your descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will do this because of my promise to Abraham, my servant." Then Isaac built an altar there and worshiped the Lord. He set up his camp at that place, and his servants dug another well. Isaac's covenant with Abimelech. One day, King Abimelech came from Gerar with his advisor Ahuzzath and also Phicol, his army commander. "We have come. Why have you come here?" Isaac asked. "You obviously hate me since you kicked me off your land." They replied, "We can plainly see that the Lord is with you, so we want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. Let's make a covenant. Swear that you will not harm us, just as we have never troubled you. We have always treated you well, and we sent you away from us in peace. And now look how the Lord has blessed you." So Isaac prepared a covenant feast to celebrate the treaty, and they ate and drank together. Early the next morning, they each took a solemn oath not to interfere with each other. Then Isaac sent them home again, and they left him in peace. That very day, Isaac's servants came and told him about a new well they had dug. "We have found water," they exclaimed. So Isaac named the well Sheba, which means oath. And to this day, the town that grew up there is called Beersheba, which means well of the oath. At the age of 40, Esau married two Hittite wives, Judith, the daughter of Beri, and Basmath, the daughter of Elon. But Esau's wives made life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. All right, so we are going to switch over to our PowerPoints. And again, we are discussing Isaac's obedience today and just, walking through what this story entails. I really want to encourage you to make sure that you read in context. So it's great when people refer to, like, let's say, you're hearing a sermon and they're referring to someone's life. It's great to read it in full context about what was actually happening. That's the reason why we read through the full chapter, so you can just kind of get it in the back of your mind, like this is the context of what we're talking about. And then we kind of go through and break it down bit by bit so that we can just understand what's happening in each piece of that chapter. Because every chapter always has like a lot of good information. You just got to break it down a little bit. So remember, we're talking about Isaac's obedience, And so it starts off by telling us that a severe famine now struck the land, as had happened before in Abraham's time. Okay, if you go back, this whole chapter, let me start off by saying this whole chapter is very reflective of Abraham's exact journey. It may have happened like in a smaller timeline for Isaac, but I'm telling y'all, it's almost word for word what happened in in Abraham's time that happened for Isaac, because Abraham also experienced a famine. Abraham moved to some of the same places that Isaac is about to move to, and Isaac is very familiar with this land. It's interesting how God takes both of them all around the land that He's going to give their descendants. It's just amazing. It's like surrounding it, and continually to have a presence in different parts of the land because it's going to be theirs. So it said, severe famine struck the land. At the time, Isaac was living, it tells us in the previous chapter, the chapter before that, Isaac was living in the Negev. So the Negev is like south of this is Beersheba, this is Gerar. And then the Negev is like a southern point. It's like a desert. It's on the way to Egypt, like Egypt would be like over here. So it's sort of down here this way. It's like a desert, more of a desert area. And so a famine struck the land. So that happened before in Abraham's time. And when it happened to Abraham, Abraham initially moved to, I think he was up here near Bethel, and then he moved to Egypt. And that was the first time. And so Isaac moves to Gerar, which is a place that Abraham had gone to before as well. And this is not the land of the Hittites. This is the land of the Philistines in this area. So you can see like Canaan is here. So a lot of the Canaanite tribes would have been the Hittites and the Amorites. Like they would have come from the same descendants, and these were the Philistines, so a little bit of a different tribe. Nothing to do with Abraham, completely different descendant of Noah. So let's go back a little bit to Noah. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These descendants that was all in this land would have been all of Ham's descendants. Okay. So Ham's descendants occupied this land. We talked about this weeks and months ago. That's in Genesis 10, I think, maybe 11, something like that. We talked about the Table of Nations. And so this is all Ham's descendants. So Ham had different sons. They all had different kind of tribes. This is the Philistines. Canaanites are all in this area. And Abraham is obviously a foreigner in the land. So Isaac is moving around just like Abraham did. And he moves to this land where King Abimelech lives. And it's so funny. This is the same Abimelech that Abraham had to deal with. I'm telling y'all, the story could have been more mirrored more closely. If you go read this chapter again, I would really encourage you to also read Genesis 20 and 21, because you're going to see how some of the same stuff that happens to Abraham, Isaac is about to do the same exact thing. So it says, the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. So this is this first. Remember, like usually when it's talking about history in the book of Genesis, it's referring to history a lot. So it's giving you an overview of what happens, and then it's breaking down kind of how it happened. So this is like a summative statement talking about the famine and where Isaac moved. So now it's going to tell us how that happened. So then it says, the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. So remember, his dad went down to Egypt. So Isaac would have been very aware of what his father had experienced before and all their different travels and how they responded to it and how the story unfolds for him. But he's telling him, basically, other people go to Egypt during these different times, like a famine. Because at that time, you go back to probably your history that you understand, you remember Egypt is a major civilization. So they have the Nile, and they just have a lot of prosperity that's surrounding the Nile. So at this time, Egypt would have either still been a major civilization or still had enough prominence to absorb people and provide and stuff. So do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham your father. So the Lord is appearing to Isaac, and he's giving him specific instructions to live here, dwell in the land that I'm going to give you. You are a foreigner right now, but it's going to be what I bless you with. It's going to be what I bless your descendants with. And he not only is saying, this is a promise that I gave to your father, he's saying this is a promise I'm giving you. Like, you have inherited, remember, we talked about the inheritance last week. You have inherited the blessing, the promise that the Lord has given to Abraham is what Isaac inherits. So all of this is coming, and God is confirming it. And I love that. He says, I hereby confirm. It was already a promise that was given, but he was confirming it. He's validating it. He's reminding him of it. Like, this is something that, yes, I'm going to do for you. Just as I solemnly promised to your father, Abraham. I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars of the sky. I will give them all these lands. That is so good, because that is a good, I'm telling y'all, it's like a mirror reflection of what he told Abraham. He told Abraham the exact same thing, that your descendants will be as numerous as the stars of the sky. And in another way, he said it in another promise, a different chapter, he said it as numerous as the sands on the seashore. So by him using this exact verbiage, as numerous as the stars of the sky, it's really, really, really setting in probably for Isaac of the exact promise. Like, this is matching what he knows about what his father has told him. And through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. All of this goes together. You cannot separate the promise that Abraham received and then that Isaac received. Numerous as the stars of the sky, they will inherit these lands, and through them, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. You cannot separate the promise. It all goes together. So the purpose of God calling and setting apart this family to have these descendants is so that everybody in the nation will be blessed, and we know that that leads to Jesus and all the blessings that come through that. So this is where it stems from. So you can't say, oh, this is part of the promise, and not talk about the other part of the promise. Like it all goes together. It's like a 3-part thing that you can read right here. It says, I will do this because Abraham listened to me and obeyed all my requirements, commands, decrees, and instructions. So what did Isaac do? Isaac stayed in Gerar. Why? Because God just told him. He just came and confirmed for him that he's going to bless him, that he's going to be with him, that he's going to take care of him, that this is his land. Like he's saying, provision is here for you. So do these things. I will give you these. This promise is already yours. And this is because your father basically held up his part of the agreement. There was a covenant made. I asked him to obey and to do these things. The covenant with circumcision, he obeyed and agreed to do it, amongst many other things. Because your father obeyed, I'm giving you this. So Isaac gets to dwell in the blessings that in the work that his father put in. So he doesn't have to start over. He's just adding to what Abraham has already done and worked for. And it's like, okay, well, if my dad did it this way, then I'm going to do it this way. If you were pleased with how my dad did it, then I'm going to continue to do what my dad did. I don't know why we feel like we have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to how we live our lives. If somebody does something right and you don't have to start from scratch and you can build on what they built, like that's how our generational blessings are supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to grow and build in that way. So that will be a blessing for Isaac, just as it's a blessing for any of us. So Isaac stayed his behind in Gerar. He did not go to Egypt like, let's say, other people, maybe other tribes, other families were probably going to Egypt. He stayed in a famine because God said he's going to provide. So when the men who lived there asked Isaac, so lived there is in Gerar, they asked Isaac about his wife, Rebecca. He said, she is my sister. Now, I know y'all remember when Abraham said the same thing about Sarah. She is my sister. Now, the thing about when Abraham said it, Abraham really was the sister of Sarah. They had different mothers, same father. So he actually was the sister. I mean, Sarah actually was his sister. Rebecca, however, is not Isaac's sister whatsoever. She is like a distant cousin, basically, but not a sister. So, but this is why he said that. He was afraid to say, she is my wife. He thought, they will kill me to get her because she is so beautiful. That's the same reasoning that Abraham used to say that Sarah was his sister and not his wife, because he said they will kill me to get because she's so beautiful. And when I look at this, I'm like, man, here go Isaac, he's lying. But there's never explicitly, I can say, never mentioned like a punishment for him doing this. And so what it leads me to believe is that there's probably some truth to this, that they are so, because barbarianism is a thing, and there are what we consider barbaric tribes. They would do something like this in order to take a wife. They would kill someone because they're going to do what they want to. They're going to lead by their flesh. They're not going to lead by the spirit. There are two different ways of living. And he's like, these people don't operate like we operate. So I need to, watch my back. And so that's what he said. You can argue with it, but that's what he said. But the truth comes out. So it says, sometime later, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, the same king that Abraham used the same lie on, looked out his window and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. So he like, what's going on? Immediately, Abimelech called for Isaac and exclaimed, she is obviously your wife. Why did you say she is my sister? Because I was afraid someone would kill me to get her from me, Isaac replied. Now, Abimelech is probably flashing back to the exact same situation that happened with Abraham and how it was a curse put on his people of infertility because they had taken Sarah. So he's like, why would you do this? How could you do this? Abimelech exclaimed. One of my people might easily have taken your wife and slept with her, and you would have made us guilty of great sin. So again, he's probably flashing back to the whole situation that happened with Abraham, and he's like, not this again. Like, and he knows that his people, not that they would have married properly and come in and asked for her hand, could have taken her literally and slept with her. It's called rape in today's society, but this would have been a normal practice that if a man wants a woman, they go take them and it's theirs. She's theirs. And that's something that would have brought sin to Abimelech and his people because she is a married woman. So at least they have enough sense to know that, you don't take someone's actual wife, because that would make them guilty. They had different gods, different beliefs, but at least they knew that much. So then it says Abimelech issued a public proclamation. Anyone who touches this man or his wife will be put to death. So it's like an official, we don't mess with them, leave their wife alone in case you're thinking about it. We don't want that sin. So this is a law, a decree that we're putting in place. Then we move on. So that was like one part of Isaac and Abimelech's interactions. Then we move on. It says when Isaac planted his crops that year. So sometime within this year, remember, this is a famine in the land, but Isaac is planting crops. It's a famine in the land, but Isaac is planting crops. Not only did he plant the crops, it says he harvested 100 times more grain than he planted. For the Lord blessed him. It's a famine in the land in verse 1. It told us it's a famine in the land. Isaac is planting crops. Not only is he planting crops, he's harvesting 100 times more grain than he planted, for the Lord blessed him. It was not Isaac's doing that gave him all of his grain. It was the Lord blessing him. So he's got a hundredfold blessing in his situation just because he obeyed the Lord. Look at the blessing of his obedience. He would not have necessarily known when the Lord was telling him, hey, don't go to Egypt, that this is what he had in store for him. So it's the same thing for us. When God is giving us an instruction, he's not going to tell us how that blessing is going to work out. But when we obey and you trust and you have faith and you work it out and you give it time, you're going to be able to see how, the Lord is blessing. And the Lord is willing to continue to do more, even exceedingly abundantly more. So let's keep reading. He says, the Lord blessed him. He became a very rich man, and his wealth continued to grow. Well, I'm just going to think about that for a second. How did he become a very rich man? It just told us how he became a very rich man. This is how the Lord blessed him. He harvested 100 times more grain than he planted. Well, if I harvest all this grain and it's a famine in the land, what am I going to do with my grain? I'm going to sell it and give it. Sell it, give it, use it. He became a very rich man. He was already wealthy. He had inherited his father's blessing, remember. His father did not use up all of his, servants and household and the animals and all that. He became a very rich man, so even richer. His wealth continued to grow. He acquired so many flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle and servants that the Philistines became jealous of him. So imagine you being a foreigner coming to your country. And because they're listening to the Lord and they're abiding where the Lord is telling them to abide and residing where the Lord is telling them to reside, that they plant something. They do put in work, and that it just grows into blessing, 100 times more than what they put into it. And then because you're in someone else's, area, they're watching you, observing you, and they're like, dang, how is he or how is she getting all of these things? You're being blessed in the midst of people who don't look like you, who maybe don't act like you, they don't believe what you believe, but the Lord is blessing you. So imagine how that will make you feel if you're the foreigner, if you are the people and a foreigner is in your space. I know here in America, when we see other people, we're like, how are they prospering? And we're not prospering. Are we aligned with God? Are we following his will? Are we are we being obedient to what he gave us as an assignment to do? Because if not, you're not going to reap the blessings. So this is what Isaac was acquiring. And the Philistines became jealous of him. They became jealous of him because he's not one of them. He's residing in their land as a foreigner and he's being blessed, and they're not understanding. They already can't get his wife, and she's beautiful. Now he's looking like the king of the castle. So then we have some retaliation here. Let's talk about retaliation. All right, so we're discussing retaliation, right? So keep in mind that there are certain things that Isaac did in obedience to God, and we are going to be seeing what happened as a result of his obedience and what is his response to the people who are retaliating against him. So remember, the Philistines are jealous of Isaac and his wealth and all the things that he's gaining from God. So the Philistines filled up all of Isaac's wells with dirt. These were the wells that had been dug by the servants of his father Abraham. So the people whose land he's living in retaliate against Isaac by filling up the wells with dirt. Now, this is critical because you have to understand the importance of water in this time. I mean, it's critical to our functioning today, but it's definitely critical if you are an agricultural person. That's the way you gain your livelihood is through agriculture. We see up here that he had herds, he planted crops, um, he had flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and servants. Everybody needs water in order to function and like help that economy move. You need water. You need water to for your flocks to drink and herds to drink. You need water for your plants to grow. And so what they did is Isaac was using the same wells that his dad's servants had dug. So the wells are working. They've been in operation for years and years, like decades at this point. And you've got some Philistine jealous people who are going to come and be petty and fill up the holes with dirt. That took a lot of dirt. They had to do a lot of work. You can't just, it was just like it's dirt next to the well. You just gonna put some dirt in. No, in order to fill the well, I mean, you're talking about feet and feet and feet and feet and feet of dirt. Like you have to dig deep to get, to strike water. So this is something that they really put a lot of thought into, and it wasn't just one; it was several wells because it's a plural word, and so they were petty. So that's what they did. They filled up the wells. What did Isaac do? Um. Oh, I duplicated it wrong again. That was verse 15. Okay, so then it says in 16. Finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. Okay, so sorry. That's what this was the response. You done became prosperous in our country. We don't like you. Okay, we're going to retaliate against you and we're going to kick you out. So Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. Go somewhere else, he said, for you have become too powerful for us. Too powerful. Now, last I checked, Isaac wasn't trying to rule over their people. He wasn't trying to take what they had and make it his. He was blessed by God on his own. He wasn't trying to use what they had. The water, I mean, they don't really own the water. This is like, something his father literally dwelt in that same land. His father was given permission to have that, to dwell in the land and to use those wells. And literally, they're gonna put water in the wells, and now I'm too powerful for y'all. I'm living in your land. How can I become too powerful? So, that's jealousy. Okay, so y'all want to say I'm too powerful. So he moved. So Isaac moved away to the Gerar Valley, where he set up their tents and settled down. He reopened the wells his father had dug, which the Philistines had filled in after Abraham's death. Isaac also restored the names Abraham had given them. Okay, so not only did he move away from where, they were, obviously, this is the valley, so it's most likely the valley is somewhere between another place. So it's probably like Gerar on this side and like another place on this side. And it's probably some mountains. Usually, if it's a valley, that means there's mountains. So it's probably that city, a valley, and then some mountains nearby. And then probably on the other side of the mountains is another city. So obviously the valley was not something that was occupied. So they went there, settled down. His father lived there, so he reopened the wells that his father dug. So y'all see how Isaac is continuing to follow in this pattern of doing what his father has done. Just like Jesus in I think it's like John chapter 15, he talks to us about how he does what he sees the father doing. This is a great example of how we can do that in like our modern relationships is do the good that has already been done. Just duplicate that. It's no need to reinvent the wheel. Just do what's already been done and you can keep legacy going. Right? That's how legacy it grows. So then, but it tells us a little secret. The Philistines filled in those wells when Abraham died. So, and remember, Abraham was a foreigner, just like Isaac is a foreigner living in the land. So he moves to different places at different times. I believe when Abraham died, he was living in Beersheba. Right now, this is in Gerar. This was beforehand. This is actually around the time that Isaac was born. They had moved, or even before he was born, they had moved here. And what ends up happening is it's telling us that after Abraham died, so almost like a sign of, okay, we don't have to pay attention to that person. We don't have to keep this covenant with this person. We can, because it was a covenant that they made, that the Philistines made with Abraham's people. And it was essentially saying that we no longer have to obey this covenant because y'all don't live here anymore and he's dead. So Isaac restores it. You can see it as a sign of disrespect, but it's them sort of taking over their land, and that's how they said we're gonna take back our land, and they're gonna fill in the hole so that it can't be used as a well and nobody can thrive in the land that somebody previously thrived in. Sure. Well, Isaac reopened it. He also renamed it the same names that his father had given them. And that's what you name the wells, what you call a place is important because it's like you're speaking the positivity, the goodness, the what is bringing forth. You're claiming it. Every time you call the name, you're claiming that the meaning of it in that place. All right. Then it says Isaac's servants also dug in the Gerar Valley and discovered a well of fresh water. But then the shepherds from Gerar came and claimed the spring. My. This is our water, they said, and they argued over it with Isaac's herdsmen. So Isaac named the well Esek, which means argument. All right. So he moves to the valley. He reopens the wells that his father had dug. Then they discover additional fresh water. So they dug for themselves and discovered additional fresh water. That's how you take what your father has done or what your family has built and you build onto it. So Isaac took the wells, got those. They dug for more, found more fresh water, but somebody came and tried to take that. So they had to leave that alone. He called it Esek, which means argument, because the people tried to come who live in the land and try to say, well, that's ours. You can't have it. Okay. So then in 21, it says Isaac's men dug another well. See how they got into that argument and then they just moved on to the next opportunity? All right. Isaac's men dug another well, but again, there was a dispute over it. So Isaac named it Sitnah, which means hostility. Okay. Y'all want this well. This well means argument. Y'all want this one. This one means hostility. Move on again. Abandoning that one, verse 22, Isaac moved on and dug another well 3 times. This is the third well they attempted to dig. This time, there was no dispute over it. So Isaac named that place Rehoboth, which means open space. For he said, at last, the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land. So you see how they were retaliated against. They was kicked out of the property and had to move somewhere else in the valley. Then when they moved somewhere else, the shepherds came. The shepherds are people who don't necessarily like live in the city because they have flocks. So essentially they have to take their herds out to feed on the fresh water. So when they figure out that Isaac's herdsmen have dug freshwater wells and have found good water, they want to claim it for themselves. So not only were they kicked out, now the things that they were discovering are being claimed by the people who live there. So instead of Isaac going back and forth with them, he said, all right, we're going to do another one. They went back and forth with them then. Okay, y'all can claim that. We're gonna call that what it is, because he's calling it what it is by naming the wells, argument, and what was the other one? Argument and hostility. So he's naming that. That means we're not dealing with argument. We're not dealing with hostility. So he's gonna go build another well. They dug another well, and that one was something that they were allowed to keep. And so that one means open space. Therefore, it's recognized that in this place, the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper. So in this space, we're going to operate. We're going to leave arguments and hostility over there. We're going to operate in the open space. This is, again, Isaac is being obedient. And he's not, why would he argue with somebody and waste his time with somebody who wants to take? No, that's unnecessary. It's more. It's kind of like how a door closes in your life. And it's like, don't go beat down the door. The door closed. Go open another door. That's exactly how God guides us through life. That door closed. Go find you another door to open. It's plenty of opportunities. So all Isaac found was more open space, more wells. It's all good. We all can prosper here. So that's a great lesson to take for yourself. So then in verse 23 it says, from there Isaac moved to Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him on the night of his arrival. This is what the Lord said. I am the God of your father Abraham, he said. Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will bless you. I will multiply your descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will do this because of my promise to Abraham, my servant. This is two times. This is the second time that the Lord is speaking to Isaac. In the beginning of the chapter, he spoke to him and told him, don't go to Egypt. I'm going to bless you. And that's exactly what he did. Now he moved to another place. So he was here. Okay, this is Gerar. I'm assuming the valley is somewhere between Gerar and Beersheba. He moves to Beersheba. Beersheba is where Abraham was living before, because look at this. This is the map of, I showed y'all in chapter 21, so like 5 weeks ago, how this is the journey that Abraham and Isaac would have taken when they went to the mountain of God to sacrifice Isaac. This would have been the route that they took. So this is the place that they were living in before. Isaac is going to all the places that his dad lived at. He's very familiar with these places. And so it's like, again, it's kind of like God is moving them around the very places. He's down here, he was up here, he's over here. He's moving them all around the very places that they are going to inherit. And look at this promise that, first of all, he said, I am the God of your father Abraham. So this chapter is going to be the first time we're kind of introduced to that introduction of the God of your father Abraham. And that is important for Isaac because he needs to know what God it was that introduced himself to his father Abraham. And so if Isaac knows all that what God has done for him, if Isaac knows all of what God has done for Abraham, then he's confirming, hey, I'm the God of your father Abraham. So it's like, I'm going to do the same thing and more for you. So do not be afraid, for I am with you and I will bless you. I will multiply your descendants and they will become a great nation. You see how it's all of what God is going to do for him? Isaac already obeyed in the beginning of the chapter as far as not going to Egypt. Now God is confirming for him, like informing him, not to be afraid. I am with you, will bless you. I will multiply your descendants and they will become a great nation. So he's promising him these three things. He's saying what I will do. I would do this because of my promise to Abraham, my servant. And essentially because Isaac is obeying and following the footsteps, he's getting the blessing. Then Isaac, verse 25, built an altar there and worshiped the Lord. He set up his camp at that place and his servants dug another well. Now this is, like when I tell y'all, it mirrors so heavily. What Abraham experienced and what Isaac are experiencing is like the same thing. When you go and you read about Abraham, this is exactly what happens to Abraham. He'll build an altar and he worships the Lord. So Isaac is doing what he saw his father do and what he heard about what his father did. He set up his camp and his servants dug another well. The same thing happened with Abraham. Another well, and when you dig a well, it's like you're digging. You don't dig wells. You're just gonna be somewhere temporarily, like you only stay in there for a week or something. You're not gonna go dig a well. You have to put in work to get a well done. First of all, you got to figure out Where is a good likely place for us to dig a well at? What's going to be the most beneficial for us to be able to function? You need a well so that you can function as a society. So they have to kind of plan out the camp, if you will, of where they're going to be staying. And so digging another well is like a sign of faith, really, that like this is going to be a dwelling place. Even though they are foreigners and they're camping, they don't have a permanent dwelling place, if you will. It's like brick and mortar. It's like a faith act of a permanent dwelling place. So everywhere they're going, they're digging these wells. These like wells don't disappear. They're going to be there and available as long as they're taken care of or get taken care of. They're going to be there and available for generations to come. So then, remember, Abimelech done kicked them out of his land. Now it says, one day, King Abimelech came from Gerar with his advisor Ahuzzath and also Phicol, his army commander. Now, wait a minute, because he done moved. So that means Abimelech came from Gerar to Beersheba to visit Isaac. So Isaac's like, why have you come here? You obviously hate me since you kicked me off your land. They replied, we can plainly see that the Lord is with you. So we want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. Let's make a covenant. Swear that you will not harm us, just as we have never troubled you. We have always treated you well, and we sent you away from us in peace. And now, look how the Lord has blessed you. So, y'all came all the way over here to ask for a treaty. I call that humility. These people who Isaac chose not to argue with, he's gonna, do what he's required to do and not make a fuss of things, left the land, did his own thing, and now they're having to come to him to make a treaty because they have now recognized the blinders are off and they can now recognize how much the Lord has blessed him. Now they couldn't see that blessing before because it was jealousy, but now they can see the humility in their own situation. So they said, we can plainly see that the Lord is with you. We want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. So this is the covenant that they're requesting. If you don't harm us, we will never trouble you. So remember how large Isaac had grown. Isaac had grown more than what his father had because he had what his father had and then he kept growing. So at this point, he's a threat. Now, if you remember back to the fight, the war, if you will, that Abraham went and fought when he had to go retrieve Lot, he took 318 men who had been born into his household. That means that Isaac had even more than that. Not saying that all of them were necessarily still living, but like if you keep growing and multiplying, people keep, coming out the woodworks. So obviously they were big enough to be a threat to Abimelech in the Philistines. And so this is what, this is why they're coming with this treaty. Like, we don't want you to harm us. So we're going to make peace with the situation. Because he's saying, we treated you well. We've always treated you well. And we sent you away from us in peace, which they did. They didn't send him away with a curse. They did allow them to be in the land. So he's like, we just need to kind of call a truce so that there's no harm between us. And they're also pointing out, like, look how the Lord has blessed you. You had to leave, but like, look how the Lord has blessed you. And that's what we need to take away from situations that happen when doors are closed. The other ones that get open are going to be much better blessings than the ones that you was trying to get in that was closed. You let the Lord bless you. He will vindicate you. He's going to send your enemies to have to apologize, just like Abimelech and his commander did. And he's going to bless you more. So that's why the Bible tells us, God is teaching us that vengeance is his. We don't need to go chase after it. So Isaac prepared a covenant feast to celebrate the treaty, and they ate and drank together. So that means he was in agreement. I won't harm you. Early the next morning, they each took a solemn oath not to interfere with each other. Then Isaac sent them home again, and they left him in peace. Meaning, y'all can go live over there. We're going to come live over here. We're not going to bother y'all. Y'all not going to bother us. It's going to be peace in the Middle East. That very day, Isaac's servants came and told him about a new well they had dug. We found water, they exclaimed. So Isaac named the well Sheba, which means oath. Or I guess it's Sheba, which means oath. And to this day, the town that grew up there is called Beersheba, which means well of the oath. Isn't that wonderful? After the covenant, they find another well, find more water, and that is another sign of this oath that God is making between the people. Now, I put this tree on here because it's a reminder of that tamarisk tree. If you go back to that video, I want to say that was chapter 21, maybe 22, when it tells us at the end of it that that he planted a tamarisk tree in the land of Beersheba. And I was talking to y'all about the fact that, like, Abraham doesn't own this land. The only land that he owns is the land that he bought for Sarah's death. So why would he go and and plant a tree in a land that he doesn't own? Because God promised the land. And this particular tree is a tree that takes like 400 years to grow to full maturity. And so when you foreshadow the situation that's going to develop, remember the Hebrews, which are Abraham's descendants, are eventually going to be in slavery. When they come from slavery, they're going to end up passing through and then eventually occupying this town of Beersheba. And this tree would be there, but then also you have this well that's going to be there. So like that's a double portion of water. And I believe when it talked about the tree, it said something about it being a source of water. I don't know if it's like the leaves or something like that, help it to produce water or something. I would have to go back to that article to read it, but I know I had linked it before. But I just think that's wonderful. Like you have this tamarisk tree and you have this well of water, and it's all symbolizing the oath because Abraham planted this tree after he agreed to an oath, and so did Isaac after he's agreeing to an oath. He planted. They found a well. So that is our lesson for today. And I hope that, we can come back next week and continue on because the end of the chapter is here. And this is how it ends. It's kind of odd because it's talking about Isaac and all the things that happened when they were moving from place to place. Remember, Isaac had 2 sons. So during this time, his sons are moving along with him and all that. At the age of 40, it says Esau married 2 Hittite wives, Judith, the daughter of Beri, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon. But Esau's wives made life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. So we get to pick up on what is going on with Esau and Jacob in the next chapter. But for reference, if Esau is 40, then his father is 100. So Isaac is 100 because Isaac did not have children until he was 60 years old. If I'm remembering correctly from last week, he was 60. Because he got married when he was 40. Yep, he got married when he was 40. They were infertile for 20 years. So Rebekah would have been about 40, but Isaac would have been about 60. And so if Esau is now 40, that's adding 40 years to the 60. That means Isaac is 100. And he's 100 years old, and one of his children, which is his favorite, Esau was his favorite, remember, is making life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. They're supposed to be in their older years. They're supposed to be having somebody who's taking over and who's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the wives are probably over there arguing. I don't know why people be advocating for polygamy when I have yet to see an example in the Bible where people are married to multiple people, where like a man is married to multiple people and they get along and there's no strife. If anything, the Bible is teaching us not to follow that way because there's going to be strife. I don't know what Judith and Basemath were doing, but obviously it was enough to where it was disturbing Isaac and Rebekah. Like they whole camp. Y'all doing too much. So we get to pick back up on that story with Esau and Jacob in next week. So we will be on Genesis 27. I hope this has been fruitful for you, and that you will share it with someone who, may need to learn and we want it to grow. Of course, this is something that, people can learn from. So with that being said, I hope and pray that y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend.